Hi guys, welcome to my channel and my video. My name is Love, and for today's video I thought I would share some tips with you guys on how to become a pro builder on Adopt Me. I will mainly be sharing the tips that I personally used, but if you have any other ones that I don't mention, feel free to comment them. I'd love to hear what has helped you guys too. Unfortunately, building does cost bucks and can get pretty expensive, so if you'd like to know how I make my bucks, click on the video on the top right corner or on the description. Without any further ado, let's begin with the tips. Tip number 1, using placement grid sizes and advanced movement to your advantage. A lot of people under my speed builds were asking me how I was able to move stuff so easily and freely. To be able to move stuff more freely and easier, you want to make sure to change your placement grid size to small on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. I will demonstrate now how it looks with a random furniture item. Here we have a regular sofa and our placement grid size set to large. Large is how it originally comes, but if you don't change it to small, placing and moving the furniture looks like this. On large, it almost looks like the item is skipping a lot of space and you don't have as much freedom with moving it and even rotating it. But once you set it to small, you have more freedom to place it exactly where you want it. When I have my grid size set to small, I also like to use advanced move rather than the default dragger. This makes moving items even easier and smoother, like so. This is also the same for the advanced rotating. Once your grid size is set to small, both moving and rotating items becomes much easier and smoother. Tip number 2, turn on multicoloring in settings. I always also see comments of people asking me how I can recolor multiple parts of a furniture, and this is how. Click on the settings icon on the right-hand side of the screen, then go to gameplay and turn on furniture multicoloring. If this feature is turned off, we will only be able to color one part of the item, like so. You won't be able to change all the different parts of the furniture, but once you turn it on, you will have access to all the different colors and parts of the item. Tip number 3, start off with a clean base and make your own floors and walls. As you could probably tell from my previous tips already, we are in a completely empty home with everything white. And this is how I start off all my builds. So I recommend selling everything in your build when you first start and making your walls and floors all white. Of course, it's up to you if you wanted to use any of the wall or floor colors that Adopt Me has for your builds, but this is something I always personally do since I don't like the wall or floor colors that are available. So to make my own walls, I look up walls under stuff and usually select double wall panel and make it any color I like, which is usually a light pink. Make sure that it touches the other walls next to it if making a separate room. Then just make it whatever color you'd like. Here I just chose a random light pink, and there you go. Now to change the color of a wall that's already in the build, you just want to place a wall panel in front of it and push it into the wall till you can only see the top part, like I'm doing here. I used a wall panel for this, but you could also use a rug. Now for the floors, I like to use a double floor panel that looks like wood, but of course you could use whatever you want, and then I just change the color of it to whatever I want. Then we will do what we did to the wall, but on the floor. So push it down till only a little bit of the top part is visible and make sure that the floor panel is placed as close to the walls as possible. It should look like how I have it here, and that is how I make my floors and walls. Tip number 4, use cloning. There's multiple ways to clone and in other tips that I'll share about cloning, so this part will be a little long. The cloning tool is super useful in building, and I will demonstrate how I normally use it. Here is a random crib that we have placed in our build. I have changed the colors of it and everything, and now let's say we want another one exactly like it without having to redo everything. All you have to do is click on it, go under Tools, click the smaller settings icon, and then click Clone Selected and hit Yes. The other item will spawn inside of the original one, but you can just move it with the dragger or advanced move, but that is how you clone items. You can also use cloning and advanced move to make items symmetrical. Whenever you want two of the same items to be exactly side by side or right in front of each other, just use cloning and then advanced move to move the item. This way they'll be perfectly symmetrical to each other, like I have here. You can also have something symmetrical when you want it rotated instead by adjusting your placement grid size before rotating. I like to make my placement grid size large when I want to rotate something and have it straight, like I do here. Another way to clone multiple items at the same time is by clicking on the Control key on your keyboard and selecting the other items that you wanted to clone. This way you can clone multiple things at once. You can just click on Control and select the other items if you just wanted to move multiple items at the same time and not clone. This is something I do on my computer with the keyboards, so I am not sure how you'd use this on mobile devices. But now I will demonstrate. First, you click on your first item how you normally do, and then while holding down the control key, just click on the next item. And now you can move to items at the same time or clone these to items at the same time, whatever you want. For cloning, you can also use this tool up here to create a selection box and clone a lot of things at once as well. But this is how you use it. You click on it and then you box what you want it to select, and once selected you can move it or clone it. Here I selected both the crib and painting at the same time, and I can move it anywhere I want, rotate it, and resize it, anything. If you have watched my speed builds, cloning, moving, recoloring, and resizing items is something I always do, and mastering how to do this is essential in becoming a better builder. Tip number 5, use candles for lighting. Of course, this is something that is up to you, but I thought I'd share anyways. I personally love the warm lighting that the candles give, which is why I use them a lot in my builds rather than many ceiling lights. I'm aware that there's other lighting objects you can use to achieve this warm lighting as well, but I prefer the candle, especially the medieval candle for my lighting. If I don't have anywhere to put the candle on, I sometimes hide it under furniture, inside furniture, or behind walls, wherever I feel it looks best. I like the cozy feeling and warm lighting that it brings my builds, which is why I use it a lot. But of course, this one is up to your personal preference. Tip number 6 is to include a lot of details and clutter in your builds. If you are wanting to learn how to build to eventually start trading your builds for good offers, you have to learn how to create nice looking builds that will make people want to be of good pets for it. In other words, create builds that look good and have lots of details and clutter. Of course, this comes with practice, but builds that are aesthetically pleasing to the eye, doesn't matter the style, get good offers, and even if it's for yourself, including a lot of details in your builds makes a build come to life. This build that I'm currently on is a build in which I included a lot of details and clutter. You can include things like plants, painting, frames, rugs, shelves, seats, tables, mirrors, and a ton of other stuff in your builds to make them more detailed. There are so many items and small things that you can add in your builds to make it look quote-unquote nicer. Here in the kitchen, I made sure to add a lot of things that you'd find in a real kitchen. So if you don't know what to add in your builds, just think about real life and what you'd find in those places and try to add them in your build on Adopt Me. Like for example, here I added some coffee drops to make this area look a little more realistic, but small details like this can really change your build. Tip number 7, try to create your own furniture and repurpose other items. What I mean by this is to use things like discs, cylinders, walls, floor, bricks, and other things to make your own furniture. Like here I made a clothes basket out of a cylinder, disc, and teapot. And then here on the side I made my own closet out of floor and wall panels, the clothes rack, and a curtain. I also made a little table right here out of bricks and rugs. There's a lot of items that Adopt Me doesn't have, but that's why you have to try and make your own. This of course isn't easy, but there's a lot of tutorials on TikTok and here on YouTube by multiple different creators on how to create a lot of different items. And also, with time and practice, you'll start being able to just make them yourself out of your own imagination. You'll also be able to add more stuff to already made builds. Like here on this sofa and chair I made some cylinders into pillows. And in this grind room I made my own bookshelf out of walls and rugs. So the point is just to get creative with your builds. And with time and practice this is definitely achievable. Of course, feel free to get ideas for what to include in your builds from others, but always try to keep your builds unique to you. Tip number 8, watch speed build and tutorials if you're starting from zero. If you're a 100% beginner and starting from zero, I always recommend watching and learning from speed builds and tutorials if you know absolutely nothing about building. Speed builds and tutorials is always a good place to start to gain practice. I do want to mention that I don't condone or promote copying at all, but if you're starting from zero, trying to recreate another person's build exactly like theirs is just good for practice, but always give credits to the original creator. But after you practice, I always tell people to find their own personal style and try to always make their builds original and unique to them. When you have and find your own personal style, building becomes easier and much more fun because you're making it unique to you. Nonetheless, taking inspiration from others is always okay, but still always try to make your own unique builds. And my last tip, tip number 9, just be patient and practice. Practice building as much as you can. Nobody can become a pro builder in a day or two. It takes time and patience. You have to get to know how to use items and what to look up for items, and this takes time. Everybody starts somewhere, so don't get discouraged if you're not good at first, because as you practice, building will get easier and faster. Anyways, those are all the tips I have for you guys. This is everything that helped me, and I hope they can help you too. Leave a like and sub for more, and make sure to join my Roblox group in the description. Anywho, I love you guys. Feel free to leave more comments on what you'd like to see next, and I'll see you next time.